It is time for another episode of the Portsmouth Comic Con Podcast. On this episode, I have a very special guest, a Comic Con connoisseur, artist, writer, wonderful guy, David Baillie. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, Luke. It's an absolute pleasure.
I have been looking forward to this. I'm always excited to the upcoming days before a podcast gets recorded because I'm doing my research. I'm getting to know the guests more. And I was just itching to talk with you about your career, about your relationship with Comic Cons around the world, but of course, Portsmouth Comic Con as well. So if you could, for our lovely listeners and watchers, please share us your origin story, as it were. We haven't got
Oh
to go
wow!
way back to the very beginning, but let's juice it up a little bit.
Well, I mean, I first started going to Comic Cons like nearly 25 years ago, when there just used to be one comic convention every year, and it was in Bristol. And you go further back than that, but that's too far back for me. I wasn't old enough to attend. But I used to go to Bristol. I went a couple of times and met small press people, and then I started writing and drawing and photocopying and folding and stapling my own comics and taking them there. And that's how it all started. And I was at a comic convention at the weekend, Thought Bubble, and I was meeting people that we used to hang out at Bristol, and we'd say, we said, can you believe there used to be just one comic convention a year? It's bonkers, isn't it? Now there's 5 million in the UK. That might actually be correct. I don't know.
There are a
But
lot
things have
though
really
to keep
changed.
up with though, and you
Yeah.
do your very best to attend as many as possible, which is very admirable. I mean, normally when I'm at a con, sort of I'm there. It's full on. It's a
Yeah.
extensive weekend, and to get it all done, it's great. But you need some time to get over it sometimes after that weekend. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
how do you unwind after a busy con?
Well, sometimes. So I went to New York last month.
Yes.
Sorry, this is. I hope I'm not just going to list the conventions I've been to in the
Please,
last
this
month.
is a podcast about Comic Cons. I expect you to do so.
But what I like to do in New York is stay an extra night and chill and not do any comic stuff.
Hmm.
And last year I saw some stand up. I do a little bit of stand up myself, and I'm a comedy geek, so I saw a little bit of stand up last year. This year I bought myself uh, uh, a nice Juba juice and watched a film in my hotel
Well, there we go. It's a little bit different. It's a
just
bit
to
different.
unwind so that the brain's recovered a bit for the journey home, because sometimes the journey's difficult as well.
It is difficult. It can be. But
Mm.
let's jump into that though. So you say you're a stand-up comedy geek. What are your three
Oh,
favorite specials?
oh, crikey! Wow, wow. Do you know what? I really loved Nate Bargatze's um, new one on Netflix,
Hmm.
Tennessee Kids. It's really good. Um, uh, James Acaster's. It's called something like Cold Lasagna 1997. I Hate
Yep.
Myself. It's fabulous, an absolutely incredible show. And for my third, I'm gonna name one that I think has been recorded but hasn't been broadcast anywhere. Marilyn Robertson's new show from last year, that starts with um. I'm gonna Google to see what it's called. I might have to
Please
put my
do.
glasses back on. Um, it was a fabulous show that I saw in Edinburgh last year. Um, Crikey, sorry, I'm not wearing the glasses because of the shine. Um,
It's all right, Clark Kent. It's all right. We can go with that.
no
They,
one will
they,
recognize me now.
they
I've got the
won't.
glasses on.
There's quite a few. I think Netflix are doing a fantastic job promoting stand-up, and James Acaster has got quite a few on there now as well.
Yeah, he's got a new one that's going to be on HBO in a couple of weeks. I think that'll be on Sky. But
Oh,
Marlene Robertson is she's a stand-up from the Orkneys, I think. One of the islands up there, anyway. And her show last year was called Oh, and it starts with an absolutely incredible blood-based gimmick
okay.
that had people fainting and leaving the show.
Oh,
So that's as far as I know, that's been recorded, and I think it's either going to be a next up or something like that. So try and
okay.
catch that if you as
Sounds
soon
like
as
an
as soon as it's
interesting
released.
stuff. I
It's
am a
brilliant.
I am a fan of stand up. It's one of those sort of
Yeah,
things that it's
give me
easy
some
to
recommendations.
well, it's easy just to put on. I think I it was when I was a kid. I love jokes, and I've still got some joke books around the place. And
Oh,
that's what
excellent.
as a child, that's what you think stand up comedy is. Then I got VHSs lent to me of sort of Eddie Murphy's Raw, and I was watching
Wow.
Billy Connolly stuff. Really, the stuff that I shouldn't have been listening to when I was a
Yeah.
younger lad. But it was that way of telling a story rather than a joke. That element of stand-up
Sure.
comedy, and Eddie Murphy stuff, I was a huge fan of growing up, and I've only been to a few live stand-up shows way back in the early 2000s. I went and saw
Mhm.
Lee Evans before he
Oh,
was doing
fabulous.
those insanely huge stadium tours, which is now
Yeah.
what comedy has evolved into, which is crazy. But yeah, I want to. Some of my little bucket list things for the next year is to attend more stand-up, because it is
Well, there's a great regular stand-up gig in the Guildhall in the
there
in
is.
the smaller room. Yeah, you should check that out.
And I've seen there are more sort of open mic things coming down to
Yeah,
Portsmouth and around the country as well. I
yeah.
don't think I've ever had the confidence to get up on stage. I've got a few stories that I like to tell, but I'm more comfortable telling those in sort of smaller audiences. So when did you get
Yeah.
into stand up?
Oh,
When
oh,
was that? What was that like for
oh, so
you?
that was around about 2011, 2012. It was something like you just said. I had all these stories, and I thought, oh, I bet that would work. I bet that would work. But I knew I would never have the confidence to do it. And
Mhm.
then there was a small gig in London called LOL, and I've forgotten the name of the guy who ran it, but it was a fabulous gig. And we saw me and my friend Dan Lester, who's also a comic artist. We just saw some absolutely incredible stuff. Um, just stand-ups that hadn't made it to TV, so it was our
Mm.
first exposure to them, but really weird, really bonkers stuff. And then from there, we explored the open mic scene and found people just doing absolutely just very non-TV stand-up. There was a guy called Mr.
Yes.
Beige, whose
Okay.
whose act was he would come on with a suit jacket and he'd be a bit confused and he'd go to speak and then retreat and then go to speak. And then sometimes he would take off his jacket and put it back on. And he didn't say a word for 10 minutes and it was
Wow.
absolutely fabulous. So there's stuff like that. And there's people, getting up and just telling an anecdote from their life, a 10-minute anecdote. And yeah, so that seemed to give us permission to try whatever we had in our heads. And my friend Dan Lester would read out excerpts of James Bond novels and talk about how weird and misogynist they were and
Just
horrible.
a wee bit. See, that's where you can find the comedy though, sort of in everyday
Yeah, oh, it was
situations. I
great
love
stuff.
that. Well, there we go. Maybe that's what we need at Portsmouth Comic Con. Is we need an open
Some
mic.
stand-up, a stand-up
Some. I
crossover.
know.
Oh,
I mean, I've watched a lot of Jerry Seinfeld over the years, simply because he's
yeah,
funny, but he's also got a great
yep,
love for Superman, and he's used a lot of
yeah,
that in his stand-up, and that's probably
yes,
evolved a bit over the years as well. So, growing up for you in the beautiful land of Scotland,
yeah.
what was comics like for you growing up? How easy or hard was it to find the comics you were after?
So American comics were almost impossible to come across.
Hmm.
I was born in 77, so when I was about 5 was just when the Transformers comic came out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was reprints of so I actually my first comics were reprints of the very first Stan Lee and Jack Kirby Marvel comics. Um so I think my first comic might have been X-Men #1.
Wow.
And they reprinted it in black and white in Britain for 5 pence.
Yep.
Um and
Bargain
I think
comics back in the day.
yeah, yeah. Oh my God, it was so cheap. Children could afford comics. Can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine such a thing? So I read X-Men, Thor, Spider-Man. So Marvel UK had a really good reprint business going here, and in the mid '80s, not there wasn't so much DC stuff.
Mm.
Then I read Transformers, and again that started off as reprints, and then a guy called Simon Furman took over, and he started doing loads of original material, and it was just absolutely incredible. And then from there, I discovered that they were reprinting, because I was a kid, I didn't know they were reprinting comics from another country. And then I discovered American comics, but I had to go to either Edinburgh or Glasgow to find those. Track them down in shops round the
Mm.
back of shopping centres and markets. There was a market in Glasgow called the Barras, and I used to go and buy so many comics. I'd carry them home with carrier bags, and I'd have marks in my hands for hours afterwards because of the weight of the carrier bag digging into my
That's
fingers.
that's a true comic reader. That's how we get
Yeah,
our physical exercise. It's carrying the
physical
comics back from
gain.
the comic
Yeah.
shop. Those the classic, not these 10p bags for life, the real bags
No.
that would cut into your
Yeah.
hand but never break.
Razor. I don't know why they made the handles of razor wire, but I think they did. And then sort of in my early teens, I discovered 2000 AD,
Mm.
which was my big love, and it continues to be. I love 2000 AD, and from there, Vertigo, which was an American imprint that DC had, and there was loads of 2000 AD creators there that I recognized their names, so I followed them there, and it's yeah, that's been it since then.
And that was
Reading the
it.
same sort of stuff.
But that's it. But then clearly that evolved into a career for you, working in
Yeah.
comics and working in the world of comics. What was that like for a sort of an evolution of that passion for the comics? But then wow, this is my job.
I mean, it was very, very gradual. I had a job that I didn't massively enjoy. I worked in an investment bank, and everything I did from about the age of 15 was to try and give myself a bit of time to write because
Mm.
I wanted to write, but I really wasn't very good. So I was going to do a PhD, and I thought they'll give me half an office and I could write in the evenings. And then I was offered a job in London in an investment bank. So I came down and I was just sort of writing all the time. I bought myself a little Pan Pilot with a fold-out keyboard, and I'd write in lunch breaks. And eventually, you know, it paid really well, but I didn't enjoy it. So I saved up enough money to take off what was supposed to be a year. I was going to take off a year and just try and break into comics. And I started selling some writing and some art, and made enough, kind of, to not go back to that job. So it was gradual. Like I said, I was photocopying comics and folding them for years and years before I could actually call it a proper job. But it's all comics.
I
So
love that. And I love the fact that you mentioned that in an article. You said, look, if you're ever at a con and you've got a photocopied comic, put it on my table. I want to read it. And I thought
oh,
that's the full circle. That's you.
yeah,
It's still embracing that, not necessarily the passion for the business, but it's the passion for the comic, that comic creation, which I love that.
yeah. It's the art form. I mean, I think it's easy to fall out of love with the comic industry,
Mm.
and I think it's easy to fall out of love with individual publishers. But the art form is incredible. And I don't think I ever will fall out of love with the art form. Comics are amazing. But yeah, Scott McCloud has this great thing. He said that, whenever anyone asks him, so Scott McCloud from Understanding Comics, he says when anyone asks him, how do you get into comics? He said it's easy. You get a piece of paper, you fold it 4 times, and you draw on all 4 bits. And congratulations, you're in comics.
Oh,
It's the easiest art form to break into.
it's
It's
that
maybe not the
simple.
maybe not the easiest art form to get paid to do, but it's the
No.
easiest art form to. You just need paper and a pen, and you're done. You're in comics.
Oh, I love that. And that's how a world can begin. So what was it like for you though? Once you've got those photocopied comics that you're taking to cons, you're sharing, you're networking. What was it like when you first saw your first comic, with actual staples in it, a real comic, as it were?
Yeah, well, my first printed story, I think, would have been 2008. Although no, I think I'd appeared in like small press
Mm.
anthologies and things before then. But the first gig that I got paid for was 2008. It was 2000 AD. So when you start at 2000 AD, you have to write a short science fiction story with a twist in the tail called a future shock. And my first future shock was 2008. And I remember I was talking to someone about this. I thought I'd been pitching 2000 AD for years, sent them loads of ideas,
Mm.
and eventually I was interviewed for the magazine, their monthly, and I checked how many I'd sent. I think I'd only actually submitted like 4. In my head, it was hundreds, and I was at it for years. But I just couldn't. When the editor Tharg, the alien editor Tharg,
Mm.
replied to that pitch and said, "If you change this bit, I'll buy it." I couldn't believe it. I was in shock, and I couldn't wait for the comic to eventually show up, come through the letterbox. And I remember it did feel like a dream
Mm.
because it felt like one of those. I mean, we all have life goals that we think, oh, it'd be great, but it's probably never going to happen. And I thought that was one of them for me because it seemed like an impossible goal. Uh, but yeah, it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And sometimes I take it for granted when the copies of the comics come
Mm.
in, and I don't feel that tingle, and I have to remind myself I should because it's brilliant. It's a real privilege, and I'm very lucky.
That's it. Yeah, that's my name in a comic. That's my
Yeah,
name there. That's me. I'm
do you know what I
eternal.
do like? I do like sometimes. I was in New York and I popped into a comic shop just to look at my name in the credits or something.
Mate, I don't blame you for that. That's it. I mean, it's not necessarily an ego boost. It's just a little massage. It's
I
recognition.
think it's to do with when I was a kid, I never could have imagined that would be possible. So it's like a sort of a little, I don't know, like a, it's for him. It's for 7-year-old me. You go, there you go. And,
Oh,
it happened.
I love that. So when we'll get to Portsmouth Comic Con soon, but I think when they first started, so back in 2018,
Mm,
I was over the moon. The fact that my hometown was getting a Comic Con,
it's
this was a
great, isn't it?
huge deal for me. I was like, this is so cool. There's no commute. I haven't got to go anywhere.
Yes,
It's
that
literally
makes a
like
huge difference.
it's a bus ride away. And I was like, right, let's get on board. Let's hopefully this is going to be an amazing event. Turned out to be so, but I was so happy to help get involved and do some reviews and do some advertising for the event. Then in the little brochure, the little Portsmouth Comic Con magazine, I was in the sort of the thanks section. I was like, that's my name in print. Like,
Exactly.
that's the
How cool is
coolest
that?
thing. It's so cool to see. I've got boxes now of I've got like a little sort of a blogging scrapbook of memories. And I've got quite a few of those programs in my box, just in case,
Brilliant.
I need to, you need to save those sort of things, especially
Yeah,
physical print as well. It's the same that goes for physical media.
exactly.
We've got to keep
Yeah,
on to all those good things. But yeah, no, again, yes, doing that for your 7-year-old self, it's a big thing. It's a big
that's it.
thing.
Oh, totally.
So let's
Totally.
say you bumped into 7-year-old self in a comic shop. How would you sell your comics to your 7-year-old self?
Oh, crikey. I don't think I write anything suitable for a
Yeah, I'm gonna
7-year-old
say
anymore.
it's not going to be really 7-year-old safety, but
Like we were chatting before the podcast recording started, like yourself, I was reading inappropriate material at too young an age because no
yeah,
one knew to stop me. So yeah, I don't, how would I sell my this is one of the reasons I stopped being a self-publisher because I'm a very poor salesperson. Friends of mine who've continued down that road, I saw them at Thought Bubble at the weekend. They have a table, and when a person walks past and they go, "Here's a comic that I did. It's about this. What do you like this? This is similar." I've always been rubbish at that.
yeah.
And one of the great things about going through a publisher is they have a PR department, they have a sales department, and they really know what they're doing. Um, so I think I just give the 7-year-old me a big pile of comics and say, I
Yeah,
hope you like these,
that's
and
it.
then hope I don't get into trouble for that because that seems weird.
Well, I think at Comic Cons, especially Artist Alley, there is a very fine balance about you're there to interact with the fans of your work, but you're also there to sell your work as well.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
that balance. And I mean, I detest the thought of interrupting an artist when they're creating a commission piece or they're working
Yeah.
on a sketch. So I would normally just hover. I hover a lot at Comic Cons, and I wait for the moment to be beckoned over, and then
Yeah.
that's when I can have a little chat. But yeah, I mean, it must be difficult, not just selling your work, but showing your work off to new faces. Which is why I think at a
Mm.
Comic Con, Artist Alley is just so incredibly important for opening the eyes to those that have not really been to a con before or are trying to step into the world of comics. Because I
Yeah.
think it's such it can be a mesmerizing place to be. I've seen my niece over the years. She's becoming an artist, and I remember her first time in Artist Alley. She was stopping at every single desk and saying, "How do you draw this? How can I draw this?
No
How can I
way.
do that?" And I've
Brilliant.
seen that evolve over the years, and it's a beautiful thing to see. And that is when that passion that somebody has for art can
Mhm.
evolve into something else. And I'm sure you've been doing that at cons over the years because you've been going to quite a few, haven't you?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, this year was bonkers. I went to pretty much every one in the UK and New York, and a couple of non-comic cons as well. So I went to Worldcon. So yeah, I like yourself. I end up doing a lot of hovering because you do the rounds, and a couple of people you've promised to say hello to, and
Yes.
you end up sort of hovering and waiting for the moment to say hello because there's nothing worse than leaving a convention. I mean, it happened yesterday. I was on Blue Sky and Twitter, and people were going, "Oh, I didn't know you thought about that. We should have said hello." As you never get a chance to say hello to absolutely everyone you want to. But I remember I definitely remember taking photocopies of my work to conventions when I was starting out and sort of hovering by tables and saying, "Can I show you something?" Um, and I would never hang around for feedback. I just
But, you know,
give them
just
give
give them
them
the
run.
comic. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go now. Thank you. Bye. But that's it. I mean,
Exactly.
especially if it's somebody's first time going to a Comic Con, it it can
It's
be not.
overwhelming, isn't
It
it?
is. It can be. My first ever con was, I think, many a moon ago, but it was London Film and Comic Con.
Oh yeah,
Um,
great convention.
it was amazing. It was
Yeah,
my first con. It was my first time getting press as well. So it was like it was a big thing for me. It was like,
excellent.
I've got a press
Yeah.
pass. I feel like Clark Kent. And my first job on my list of things to do was to go and see Margot Kidder, so Lois Lane from the
No
Superman
way.
series. And
Wow.
she was my first person to see. And I love thank you cards. So I had a thank you letter and some little bits and gifts for her. Got in there, got up really early in the morning, got to the queue, got to the front, got in, got to Margot's desk to be the first person in queue. Turns out she couldn't make it because she was really unwell.
No.
I've got out of all these comfort zones and I've prepared myself for all these social interactions, and it was just like snaps away. But next to Margot's desk was the beautiful Sarah Douglas, who played Ursa in Superman 1 and 2, that wonderful villain. And she came out as just a fireball of energy and said, "She's not coming, darling, but you can come and see me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And that turned the day around. After that, I had a
Really?
fantastic weekend, and it was my first introduction to a Comic Con. And I've seen different ones over the years, but each one is wonderfully different and special to me. But you've been to
Yeah.
so many cons all around the world, and it is impressive. And I saw, and I've in my research did a fantastic article for Tripwire for sort of the tips and tricks for those that is if it's your first con. And I loved your first piece of advice. Can you remember what that was?
Oh God, was it find a good toilet?
Find a good toilet, and it's fantastic advice
It's
as it
really important,
goes.
especially at a busy convention. So yeah, like New York used to have a green room for people who worked for DC. So that was my secret toilet. And that's a non-shareable one because you need, DC pass to get in.
Yeah.
But DC don't have a green room anymore. So in recent years, I've had to find secret toilets, and they change day to day. But they're discovered by the masses, because they just, if you get, I mean, how many people go to New York? It's like 80,000 or
Yeah. Mm.
100,000, maybe more. The toilets, they, they become unusable very quickly. So yeah, find a good toilet.
It's a good top tip. And I mean, and then there were more fantastic tips going down the list, i.e., smart and sensible shoes. That's always a
Oh
big
yeah,
one. I've
yeah.
learned that mistake over the years. Goodness gracious me.
Mhm.
I think I wore a pair
Yeah.
of Doc Martens to a Comic Con once, and that was
Yeah,
it.
and then you're gonna end up with blisters. It's
Yeah,
impossible because you can do 40,000 steps at a convention.
it's easily
You know,
done.
it's
It's good
it's an
cardio.
unusual day for your feet.
It is. And that was it is, but you don't tend to feel it until you stop, which was what happens at
Mm.
some Comic Cons. You are constantly moving about. And that's
And it's the problem is day two. So day one, your feet are okay, but then
yeah,
you sleep, whatever the feet try to do
yeah.
to recover, and then day two, you put your shoes on, and they go, no, oh, no, not this again. No, no.
And that's
Yeah,
what I yeah,
trainers.
it is, and that's what I do like that sort of the few days after a con has finished. That's when you sort of realize what you've done, what you've bought, how many steps you've done. That you do need to actually buy a new pair of shoes because yours have got holes in. But yeah, there's something about the build up to a
Yeah.
con, but the wind down as well. Let's talk a little bit now. I mentioned before we started recording that I visited the wonderful land of Scotland last year, and we'll be going back next year for a little getaway. You've you've made some wonderful books about Scotland, haven't you?
Yeah, I actually tried to avoid doing too much Scottish stuff to start out with because you don't want to be pigeonholed.
Hmm.
But then I did a series for Vertigo called Red Thorn, set in Glasgow. And it was, I jumped at the chance of my two goals starting out both seemed completely ridiculous, but I wanted to write for 2000 AD
Yep.
and I wanted to write for Vertigo.
Okay.
Um, and it was a bit weird when I achieved both of them because I really wasn't sure what else I wanted to do. Um, But for Vertigo, we did a series called Red Thorn. It was I think we can call it a cult hit.
Mm.
People still ask me, it was 7 or 8 years ago now, and people still ask me to sign it at conventions. I co-created that with an artist called Megan Hetrick, who's out in Atlanta. She's incredible, and it was all weird Scottish myths and folklore that we turned on their, that we turned on their heads, and set in a contemporary Glasgow. Although we visited the Highlands and the islands and different parts of the country as well. But that was very cool, and it actually kind of freed me up because, like I said, I avoided doing the Scottish thing too much. But then after that, I did lots of Scottish stuff for 2000 AD. I've done so I did Calhab this year. So
Mm.
Calhab is what Scotland becomes in the world of Judge Dredd. So I did a Calhab series last year, and this year was Stevie L, who drew Zenith. I don't know if you're aware of
I
Zenith,
recognize the names,
the Grant
yes.
Morrison story. Yeah. So getting to work with a legend that
Yeah.
I'd admired for years. He worked on The Invisibles. It's probably my favorite comic. Zenith, which is probably my top 10. He's just this incredible artist. I got to work with him on Calhab and design a new Scotland for the world of Judge Dredd. I also did Midden Face McNulty. Um, and his dog. I did a story about his dog, who's also Scottish. There's definitely another Scottish character I've done, and I can't think who, for 2000 AD. But yeah, it was nice because it was I didn't know that I had so much interest in Scottish folklore and Scottish myth and legend. And
Mm.
then as soon as I started writing, there was absolutely tons of stuff. So that was very nice.
There's
And getting to do signings in Scotland. Megan flew over. We did signings in Edinburgh and
oh
Glasgow. I did the
wow.
Edinburgh Book Festival. That was all. That was all cool. And it was actually I must have them somewhere in the office. I was on the front page of the Scottish Herald or the Glasgow
See,
Herald.
see.
I was in loads of newspapers and stuff when it came out. It was brilliant, and I got to meet Sir Ian McKellen. I got a photograph of him with the comic,
I saw
and
that in
yeah,
a pub of all places, which is a
yeah.
fantastic place to meet him.
That pub's around the corner. So he used to live around the corner from me, and there's a pub quiz. It's called a pub called the Grapes in Narrow Street in London, and there's a pub quiz on a Monday night, and he's just off from there. And so we were switching. At the pub quiz, you switch answers with the team next door,
Yes.
and we switched. So I got chatting to him one night, and Megan was there. The artist came over to visit, and I said, "I've got this new comic out. Would you like a copy?" And he said, "Yeah, come over. We'll do photographs."
Oh,
And I think he even asked us to sign them for him. Lovely man.
see? And
Very
that's what
nice.
happens when you promote your work that you're proud of. You went from those photocopies to Sir Ian McKellen. There we go.
Yeah.
This is my comic now as well. I love that. But no, yeah, Scottish folklore and the monsters and all the goods and the
Mm,
history of Scotland is something that I fell in love with last year when I visited. And it was
brilliant.
partly due to a fantastic coach driver that took me on like a pretty much a 10-hour coach tour of Scotland. And
Oh
yeah,
wow.
we
Where did
saw
you
the Celt.
go?
We did Loch Ness, we did
Yeah.
Glencoe, we did just some absolutely ridiculous, gorgeous scenery. So we saw the Kelpies,
Yeah. I haven't
and
seen
that,
them.
my goodness me.
Yeah. I've
Um,
seen photographs of them, but I haven't seen them in real life.
so and with red eyes at nighttime, if you
Yeah.
didn't know they were coming up, you'd make sure that you are in fact awake, seeing those on the side of a motorway. But yeah, there's lots of and yeah, we did the Loch Ness tour. Didn't see the beautiful beast, but had a fantastic time.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, she's usually just floating there for the
it's
tourists.
a shame, but yeah, but it was very wet and windy when I went to Scotland, and I was so happy because I wanted all the weather, and we saw some fantastic sunshine, some fantastic wind and rain, and yeah, left a little part of my heart at Glencoe, I think for sure. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to going back next year. But for you, when it comes to traveling and seeing different parts of the world, what is it that you're really excited to see at a Comic Con?
Comic Con. Oh, crikey. I mean, we were talking about this before. I can't remember if it was before the recording started or not, but every convention's so different.
Hmm.
So Thought Bubble this weekend, I was excited to see. It's all lots of self-published stuff. Creators who are working on their own on the thing, and it's just such an eclectic mix of things.
Hmm.
To be honest, it's slightly overwhelming how many amazing comics are there. New York, it's getting to hang out with people I haven't seen for a year or two. American creators, American editors that I haven't spoken to for a while. I have loads of friends in America because I've been going over for American conventions for like 10, 15 years. So yeah, on a con by con basis, it's always very different. In Portsmouth, I love because I'm involved and I'm, in the fabric of it. And I feel like, you know, we're putting on this great show for Portsmouth.
Mm.
And I think it's so great because a lot of cities don't have a great comic convention like that. And like you said you were excited that you were getting a local comic convention. I think that's point A, but point B is it's such a good one. It's
Yeah.
really good. You get so many
It's
immersive experiences, and you get so many great artists showing up, and you get so much local talent there that you can just walk up to, like you said, and you say, "How do you do this?"
it
Um,
was, when
Brilliant.
it got announced back in the day, I was thinking, right, it's good. We've got a con. And I was getting a bit of feedback from the guys that were putting it on. And I was like, okay, the names that they're getting in are fantastic comic names. There are some big names coming from some big places, and that was down to everybody. It still is a machine. There are some fantastic people working behind the scenes. There are people
Oh,
there
it's an
that
incredible team.
know, yeah, it's and that know a lot about comics, and they know what comic fans want to see. And I thought, let's just wait till the weekend's over before you really sit down and think about the pros and the cons and what worked and what didn't. And I was trying to put it through my mind, if this was my first ever Comic Con, would I have had a good time? And I think that yes is the answer, because it's the perfect introduction to a Comic Con. I don't
Mm,
think back in the day many people in Portsmouth knew what a Comic Con could be. And I think it's still a thing around the country that some people don't, even though you said they do prop up everywhere now.
mm.
But with a Comic Con that is works so closely with the community and the artists and the creators, yes, clearly I'm biased because I'm from Portsmouth and I love Comic Cons and I help with the team, but it's always got such fantastic feedback from people. It's a very special event.
It's a really good convention, and like I said, I think I'm trying not to say Portsmouth's very lucky, but I think it is. It's because it's such a good convention.
Mm.
In loads of towns, I'm not going to say where she lives, but I have a cousin who lives somewhere, and she said, "Oh, we have a local comic convention," and it was 3 stalls in a shopping center. I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
wow, yeah," because comic convention is yeah, it's a huge spectrum, and
Mm.
that's a very different thing to what Portsmouth has. And the first time I came to Portsmouth, I wasn't biased at all. I was just coming along as a punter,
Mm.
or I wasn't a guest. No, I was just a punter. I just came down to check it out. Loved the space, loved the guild hall,
Yes.
fabulous building inside and the outside space is really unique for a British convention. MCM London has the outdoor steps, but not in the same way. The steps in the outdoor space at Portsmouth are really integrated into the show. They're an important part of it. It just had a really nice feel. Artist Alley was great, and people were having a fabulous time. Um, so I fell in love with the show before I was involved with it in any way. So I definitely wasn't biased, and it was instantly one of my favorite conventions.
It is that. I mean, the fact that it's got Portsmouth right there in the title. It does make me patriotic to be from this little
Yeah,
maritime town. But as you said, that the Guild Hall, you think it's an interesting building option for a Comic Con, but it works literally
mm,
on so many levels because there are so many levels. You've got Artist Alley, then you've got a floor for retro video games, and there's
yep,
dice games, then there's the meet and greets. There is so much to do, and that's why Nick and Kurt, the fantastic dream team behind Portsmouth Comic Con.
they really are. They really are a dream team. No other. That's as much as I say it's unique that Portsmouth has steps and an outdoor space. What makes it unique is it has Nick and Kurt,
Mm.
and the rest of the team working so hard, so diligently, and working miracles every year. It's incredible.
It is to see what I mean. I'm lucky, sort of. I feel like very Wizard of Oz in the fact that I get a peek behind the curtain of how a Comic
Yeah,
Con became an idea to a reality. And I have meetings every now and again, and I sort of I go into the guild hall and I have to sign in. I think this for me, this
yeah,
is exciting. This is exciting. I'm like, this is me going into the Bat Cave, and I'll get to
yeah,
go in their office and see all their geeky merchandise on the wall
yeah,
and
yeah.
learn some insider information, as it were, about how this con gets to be. And it's no easy feat. I know I've talked very fondly about Nick and Kurt and the whole marketing team on here before. It is what makes this con a family event, is the family that puts it all together. But yeah, no,
Yeah.
that building, I'm normally there very first thing in the morning, and I'm there till the end of the day. And Nick and Kurt are normally there. You still here, Luke? I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm not finished quite yet. There's still some more stuff I want to do. There's so much to see into at Portsmouth Comic Con, and I love that.
It's brilliant. I think that's one of the reasons it's so great. No matter what age you are, no matter what you're into, there's a ton of stuff for you to see and do. By talking about being there early and going home late, whenever I get there, Nick and Kurt have been there for 4 or 5 hours. They sometimes get there at 4 or 5 in the morning, and they're physically setting things up and
They
sorting out logistics and moving
they
things around.
they
It's
don't
a, it's a
stop.
it's a huge physical job. It
They
really is.
and they're on. Yeah, they say they are switched on and ready to go. I think there was one moment where Kurt had just stopped and Nick had just stopped for just like catch their breath on one of the first days, and it was when the Batmobile turned up, and they both got to see that come off the ramp. But you could see that they were both there, very excited to see it come in. But after that, yeah, switched right back on. They're on professional mode. They're on crisis
Yeah,
mode.
yeah,
They've got the little
yeah.
headsets in. It's like, wow, this is
Headsets are in.
this is
Yeah,
behind the
you say
scenes.
hello
This
to
is
them, and they've got an emergency coming in at the same time. They go, "Oh yeah, no, I'll answer this. I'll get back to you in 1 minute."
yeah. I've
It's
got to
often
find
Luke
I've got to
and Dave.
find this person here and take them over there,
Yeah,
and we can't find
yeah,
that person. This person's over here. It's a
yeah,
great thing to see, and I love knowing things, sort of the secrets behind how a company works or how an event gets to be, and to see all the elements of Portsmouth Comic Con and how that starts. It's
yeah,
very impressive. Another question that I've got about you, not necessarily about
yeah.
Comic Cons. It's about the Teletubbies.
So I'm blowing my nose because I've come back from a comic convention with sniffles, of course. So
That happened.
the
Plus, it's winter.
Teletubbies, yeah.
But yes,
Um, I do a little bit
Teletubbies.
of television work. Yeah. I didn't work on the Teletubbies, but I did work for the company Ragdoll who made the Teletubbies.
Mm.
Is your question, did I meet them?
There was a little sort of section on your website where it said you had a bit of a terrifying story of some sorts.
Oh, okay. Well, I went up to Ragdoll head office for a
Hmm.
meeting. The first time I met them, they showed me where they filmed the Teletubbies, and it's a blue screen. So a green screen. It was blue screen, same thing. So it was a
Okay.
blue screen room with the levels and the markers on the floor. And they asked if I wanted to meet the Teletubbies, and I was like, "What?
You're
Yes."
not going to say no to that
Um,
question.
because my prep for the meeting was I'd read the Wikipedia page for the Teletubbies. And if you haven't read the Wikipedia page for the Teletubbies, I implore you to do so
Okay.
because there's a lot going on that isn't obvious if you just sat in front of an episode of the Teletubbies.
Okay.
It's a, I hope I haven't seen the Wikipedia page for a few years, but I hope it's still the way it was. It was talking
Okay.
about like Freudian insights and
Wow.
layers of meaning and yeah, it was fabulous. But anyway,
Okay.
so they took me so the big blue room where they filmed the Teletubbies, they took me sort of 1 meter to the left, and there were four nails in the wall in Tesco bags,
Okay.
Tesco supermarket carrier bags, and inside the Tesco supermarket carrier bags were the Teletubby costumes, just lifeless and rubbery, hanging out
Oh.
like they'd been scooped out and skinned.
Oh.
So I
Wow.
got to meet the Teletubbies, but they were bleh.
We carry your bags.
It was horrifying,
Yeah.
absolutely horrifying.
I mean, I think I've seen some photographs of the Teletubby set, sort of years down the line when it was all sort of
Yeah.
like a ghost war zone sort of thing. But yeah, to see those in carrier bags, yeah, that would be quite terrifying. The
So I
Teletubbies were a
think,
huge cult hit over here as well. So I can.
oh, absolutely. So this was they're big. Do you know what? The Wikipedia page I'm talking about is not the Teletubbies. The amazing Wikipedia page is in the Night Garden. It was created by the same
Yes.
guy. So
Mm.
the Wikipedia page for that is insane. It's bonkers. It's brilliant. But the set. So I think they were doing Teletubbies reshoots because they were releasing some 4K versions. So it might have actually been the In the Garden set because there was
Okay.
nothing there. It was all just blue screen. But yeah, you're right. The Teletubby sets used to have loads of physical things. So
Yes.
I think the reshoots for the DVD release or the Blu-ray release, it might have been at the time, was all just digital.
Ah,
And the
killing
and the
the magic for
Teletubby
me. Killing the
costumes.
magic for me.
Well, that's part of becoming an adult as you find out there isn't a giant baby in the sky
That's see, that's another thing. What I love about
smiling
this.
at the sun.
Another thing about what I love about this podcast in general is this previous episode 2, I spoke with the wonderful Andy Fanton,
Oh
um,
yeah,
another
Andy's
favorite
great.
guest for Portsmouth Comic Con. And when I was a child, it was my absolute dream to go to the Dandy and Beano offices to see how a comic was getting made. Because whenever it happened in the comics, you could see like the Beano studios, there was all paper aeroplanes and all sorts of shenanigans happening. And now it's just like, yeah, we just email our artwork in once a week now. I was like, oh, Andy, you're killing me. You're breaking my heart. I even wrote to a certain TV show back in the day to see if a certain person could fix it for me to go to the
Oh,
Dandy. I never got a reply. It's probably for the best, but
probably for the best.
yeah, but it's knowing those things behind the scenes and knowing how a project becomes a dream into a reality, and that's why I love working behind the scenes with Portsmouth Comic
Yeah,
Con and getting to speak with
exactly.
wonderful people like yourself. Now, I hope you're coming back next year for the con. Am I right?
I am indeed. I'll be
Yes.
there. I've been working hard on the guest list, the artist alley list. I've been
Yes.
speaking to lots of really great creators. And I hope that everyone that's told me that they're 99%
Oh,
coming, that's going to go up to 100%. It's
oh,
always the tricky thing because, everyone's busy. Everyone's got
yes.
such a busy schedule. They've got a number of comic conventions and they're
Mm,
balancing that with actually making the comics. So, and I feel terrible pushing people because I know I've done it myself. I just said maybe to a convention next year that's in May because I already have two conventions in May. So I said maybe. They said, "Oh, can we make it a firm yes?" So,
oh,
oh, I don't know, because a maybe is not very useful for the
no,
logistics. But
no.
then I'm on the other side doing that to writers and artists
That's it.
for
So
Portsmouth.
you've got to find that balance and sort of it's
Yeah,
probably not too difficult to sell Portsmouth Comic Con to some people, but it's sort of it's how you
no,
sweeten the deal.
the great thing is because almost everyone you mention it to now knows someone who's been and
Yeah.
loved it, had a great time. Um, so that makes it an easy sell. It really is just logistics. It's always just logistics. It's well, I've got a big deadline, and
Mm.
then I've got another deadline just after. I'll be starting this new job. That's all it is.
But
That's the great difficulty.
and that's it.
And
But
one of the guests this year is also they're also in musical theatre, so they have a musical theatre project. So they we've got provisional yes, but they might be on stage, so they can't.
a
So
bit
it's not
tricky.
100% yes.
Yeah,
So it's
two places
stuff
at
like that.
once.
It's always stuff like that. And if it's talking to guests who are working on the Doctor Who TV show, for
Mm.
example, they say yes, but you don't know their schedule might blow up because of production
Yes.
issues. So
Commitments do come into play, sadly, but that's
yeah,
something that the con has done over the years. That it's slowly making name for itself. And when people are thinking of the Comic Con itself, they're thinking, "Oh yes, it's the Portsmouth Comic Con. This is why I
mhm,
want to go back, or this is why I want to go because I've been hearing good things." And I absolutely
yeah,
love the fact that it is mainly it's word of mouth for people that are going to these events, but it's also the comic community. Artists and writers are saying, "Oh yeah, I'm going to be there. Come down as well. We can make a weekend of it." So it's a
yeah,
special event for sure. And
exactly.
I think next year, well, yes, it's on Free Comic Book Day for one, the 3rd and
Hmm.
4th of May. So it's Free Comic Book
Yeah,
Day and Star Wars Day, two
and Star Wars Day.
huge geeky events in the geeky
Yeah.
calendar. So it's going to be a fun time. What would your advice be to somebody that hasn't been to a Comic Con before and Portsmouth Comic Con might be there first?
Well, first of all, I would congratulate them on picking such an excellent choice for their first comic convention. It really is the perfect way to start out because, like I said, no matter who you are, no matter what age you are or what you're into, there's going to be stuff there for you to look at, see, do, get involved with, people to talk to. Um, every year I go out my way to try and get guests that I hate the phrase ticking boxes, but my brain's tired after convention weekends. So I'm going to say tick
Tick.
lots of different industry boxes. So, we'll have, people there who've worked on the Phoenix, the Beano, worked at Marvel, DC, they'll have done indie work, they'll have done TV work. So no matter what it is you're into, there's going to be someone to talk to, someone to, things to do and things to get involved with. So come and just have fun. Don't, yeah, chill. because it's really easy to get overwhelmed at a comic convention and feel like you're missing out on something. And that, I think if you relax and just enjoy it, there's plenty of time over the weekend to see everything at Portsmouth. So yeah, have fun. Bring friends, have fun.
And that's what I think I've tried to do that myself in the past, especially if I'm going to a long event. If I'm going to a big commute, like if I'm going like San Diego this year, I made sure that I had a timetable of where I needed to be, what I needed to do, the definites, the possibles, and the maybes.
Yeah.
It's impossible to see it all, especially a con as huge as San Diego. But I still have that problem with Portsmouth Comic Con. There's so much there to see and do.
You're missing out on panels and things. Yeah.
So
I know.
But so go with the plan, but also there's always room for some wiggle room, as I say. That's always good for it. There's plenty to see.
But I would say check out everything. I had a friend came last year with her teenage daughter who's really into a very niche manga. But the mum came along and I said, check out a couple of panels and do the immersive walkthrough. Have a look in the dealer's room. You never know. There's probably something that you guys are into that you didn't know would be here. And I think that was her first Comic Con. She had a great time. She was talking about it recently.
Yeah, that's it. That dealer's room, as you say, there's a lot of things there to sort of tempt and tease at Portsmouth Comic Con. But I love the fact that it's quite easy to go from one room where you can find like a toy for £1, and then you just step through a door and there's a comic for 10,000. And you think, oh, the emotions are playing on my heartstrings today. But there is, as you said, there is something there for everybody, which is I love about it as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's something there for everyone's budget as well, because a lot of the time, last year in particular, people were saying, "Is this included in the price? Is this included in the price?" And of course, all the experience stuff is. The only stuff that isn't is if you're buying lunch, you're buying a comic, you're buying a toy. Everything else is included. Sorry, you're buying an autograph or a photograph with one of the celebrities, but everything else is included. So you can come and not spend another penny. You can pay for your ticket and not spend another penny. And like you said, there are toys for £1. You will find a great Batman or Superman toy for £1. You find a Pikachu squishy for £3. You don't need to save up and spend a fortune at the show. The show itself is just a huge amount of fun, and I think that's great because a couple of comic conventions you go to, it is just the market bit, which is great because I love going to a Comic Con and buying loads of stuff. But that's not all that Portsmouth is about. There's so much going on.
And that is, as I said, there's something around every single corner. There's something to do each day. Always one of the highlights of my weekend is often hosting the quiz with Nick. It's one of my favorite parts of the weekend. It's always
one of my biggest regrets is that I've never seen that because I'm always doing a panel at the same time. I asked Nick to have it recorded this year.
Oh, we'll get you involved next year.
I don't think it happened.
There will be prizes. You're not going to get any insider information out of me and Nick, but it's always a great fun. And speaking of that, a parcel arrived today with lots more prizes in there. So there's going to be even more prizes next year. I love that moment.
Can you give us any hints, Luke?
Any hints on the prizes?
Yeah.
Scalextrics.
No.
Yes.
Superheroes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's time.
No,
I'm gonna start revising. I'm gonna win
that. Everybody gets involved, and again, there's no charge there for that ticket either. Already promoting the quiz.
See, this is what I'm talking about. Exactly.
It's a fun time for it, and I love all that going on, and all the fantastic food. I see that you keep talking about this fantastic sushi place that's right next door.
It closed down a month ago.
It's did. Gone. But if you are staying in Portsmouth, once the con is over, there is another fantastic sushi restaurant in Southsea that I will take you to, which is a wonderful little place down in Southsea. The name has escaped me.
Oh, I'm going to Google it as soon as we're done. Is it the same people?
I don't think it's the same people. It's a beautiful little. Oh, it's gonna really play on my head if I don't find this out now. But it was called. Was it all called Otaku?
Otaku, yeah.
Yeah,
and
it was
the chef there was brilliant. A couple of years ago, he just had a kid, and I went in one day, and he was having a snooze on one of the benches.
Really?
Because he's a new father, and I said, and his wife came out with the baby. And he's like, "Oh, wake him up! I'll get you some sushi." I was like, "No, oh my God, no!" And she's like, "No, this is the job. This is what we do."
Don't wake up the man that's about to start preparing my food, please. The one in Southsea is called Sakura. That's the one I'm calling subs.
Oh,
Yeah, so
excellent.
not too far from Guildhall. I know there's some fantastic food at the con throughout the day.
Yeah, there really is.
If we could get a
Yeah.
sushi vendor as well, that'd be fantastic. I
Oh
do
my
love a
God,
bit of.
that would be great. Yeah,
Well,
the katsu curry last year was brilliant. I really enjoyed that because I end up doing so many panels in a row. I sometimes have to just buy like a wrap or something to eat
yeah,
in the
just
5 minutes
get
between panels.
something
But
quick.
last year I managed to get out and get a katsu curry, and that was really good.
Oh, loving that. Well, there is going to be lots more podcasts happening at the event. So we're going to have to find some time where we have a little chat, a little catch up at next year's event, which is so crazy
Brilliant.
to say because we've only just
I know.
recently had this year's one, but it's going to be an
Does feel like
exciting
it, doesn't
time.
it?
And I'm
The time,
excited.
yeah,
It flies by, but
it really
now
does. Yeah.
this podcast is happening a little bit sooner. It gives me more time to build even more excitement, mainly for me. I'm going to be selfish about it. It makes me even more excited for the upcoming weeks and the guests that will be coming on. Where can people find you online, sir, to find out what you're getting up to?
I have a difficult to spell surname, but my website is just davidbaillie.net. But Baillie is Baillie, so davidbaillie.net. And on there, there's links to my Facebook, which I don't use, Twitter, which I don't use much. I've just started using Blue Sky. Apparently, I'm on Instagram.
Yeah, you are. I found you on Instagram. I'm getting to grips with Blue Sky and Threads right now. It's a
Oh, so
absolute.
how's Threads going? Because that's the
It's
Facebook one, is it?
it's getting there. It's you can see there
Okay.
are elements of the other places there in it. There is
Sure.
already a fantastic comic community building though. It's
Oh, really?
early
Okay.
days. It's hit and miss, but it's from where it started a few months back. There's progress of signs of positivity, which is always nice to see online.
That
But
is it. When I first joined Blue Sky, it was a very positive place, but it was very quiet. And
yes,
then I took a few months off, went back, and it was much busier, but a bit less. It was a bit less chill. There was there were the arguments and things kicking off, and I was like, that's not what I need.
no,
So I posted. I've got a new comic out, a new Valiant comic out in a few weeks. There's a character called Bloodshot. I don't know if you know him. He was played by Vin Diesel in a movie a couple of years ago.
okay.
But I have a comic out with Valiant and Bloodshot. Black, White, and Bloodshot, I think it's called. So I'm in issue 3. So I went on Blue Sky very quickly to post about that. And I think I did Twitter. Haven't done Facebook. I might join Threads before the end of the day to try
There
and
we
promote
go.
that.
Good man. You got to promote your work because
Yeah.
Ian McKellen knows your existence now, so you never know who you are going to be networking to or what special eyes might see your artwork. Oh,
Exactly.
thank you for your time today. Thank you
Thank
for
you very much, Luke.
being a fantastic ambassador and a cog in the machine that is Portsmouth Comic Con. I appreciate all the work that you have done and will do, and I look forward to seeing you soon, sir.
I hope we get to hang out this year because we're always so busy off doing different things.
We do. We brush past each other a lot, but we will make sure that this year something happens.
Yeah, sushi or not, whether it's
Sushi or no
not,
sushi,
something.
we will be catching up about Teletubbies and everything else in between. So take care.
Take care. Chat to you soon.